Hey, it's Hugh Hewitt, and when I want to know what's going on with the Cavs, the Browns, and the Tribe, I tune into Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
Hey guys, J-Rocc here from the Sports Fix, and we always talking about using our platform to try to help the world and the society we live in, and everywhere I go and everywhere we go, bullying is one of the problems in today's society. There's nothing worse than any person, big or small, strong or weak, adult or child, feeling picked on, pushed around, vulnerable, and victimized at the hands of a bully. Change comes one person at a time, and my good friends at No Such Thing as a Bully are working on skills and techniques and ways that we can all change and make things better for everyone. Find out more at nosuchthingasabully.com.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Catch every UFC pay-per-view live in full HD at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
And away we go, off and running with another, not just another edition of the show, another week here, getting cracked off on the Sports Fix. Welcome in, you guys, as we pop the mic and pop this thing off. The Sports Fix is off and running. I am your host, the Big Daddy on the microphone, J-Rocc, Jerry Myers, getting right into it, live and in living color here across the Sports Fix radio network. Maybe that means you're joining us live on TuneIn, on TuneIn's radio apps and Mixler, there are digital apps worldwide. Maybe you're listening to us on Spreaker and Mixler and their respective digital and mobile apps, or right off of our home base, thesportsfix.net. Welcome in. If you're not, make sure you've bookmarked that. It's always a great backup if one of the sites that you listen to the show isn't streaming live. If something goes down, thesportsfix.net, it's your one-stop shop. Plus, it's got all kinds of other goodies on there. Our social media widgets are tied right in there. You can tweet us and post on our Facebook page right there on our website, thesportsfix.net. Welcome in as well, all of you guys listening, and it is thousands of you around the world, 24 hours a day in so many different time zones. Seriously, it is amazing sometimes in the middle of the night, people listening to the show. I love it, and interacting with us, whether you're listening on iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider. Perhaps you enjoy us on iTunes or Stitcher Radio or SoundCloud and all of the other podcasts. You know what? That's right. SoundCloud has been phased out. I'm so used to doing that same introduction. Whether you're on iTunes, whether you get the show on any of the regular places that you download it, feed it, subscribe it. Thank you guys so much for doing the thing and getting your fix. I'm still getting rolling, a little bit hopped up. I'm on my second pot of coffee here this morning. It's been a long weekend for me, for all of you guys. Yesterday, of course, Father's Day. As we welcome everybody back in for the week, I want to tell you guys, of course, happy Father's Day and belated, but hopefully everybody enjoyed it. I'm going to kind of tie some of that into the opening segment here today. I was doing a lot of thinking stuff yesterday, but I don't just want to talk to myself. As I tell you guys all the time, I want to talk to you too, baby. Be the voice, the heart, and the soul of the Sports Fix, as you always are. I'm J-Rocc. Who are you? Let me know. Pick up the phone. Give me a call. 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. What'd you do yesterday? Did you go? Perhaps you took your dad to a baseball game. Perhaps you took your son to a baseball game. Perhaps they took you. I don't know. What did you get into this weekend? 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. Facebook and Twitter. So many of you listen to the show on your phones and on your mobile devices. Use your social media to be a part of the show. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix, CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com, Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix, CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. And as I said yesterday, Father's Day, again, happy Father's Day to all of you guys out there, and hopefully everybody had a great time. I had a fantastic weekend, a fantastic Father's Day. I got to say, no matter what it is, certain things, certain holidays, certain years stick out more than others. I will definitely say that this year, Father's Day sticks out a little bit more than others. My kids kind of went above and overboard to make it an awesome deal, and it was a great weekend. Anyway, I want to thank those of you guys that came out Saturday night. I saw some of you guys at the out at the Odeon downtown, just a few hundred feet away from Progressive Field, as the Indians were doing their thing. Unfortunately, they couldn't send their fans home as happy as ARW did, but it was a great show. I always love getting a chance to see some of you guys. Man, Charles Morgan was there. Of course, Vince McKee, the author, was there. Saw Ron Graham, saw Chase out there. A lot of you guys that interact with us here on the show. It was a good time, and I cannot wait till the next time I'm in town, which is, I think, about 5-6 weeks from now, August 1st, the big show at the ballpark out there in Avon, which would be really, really fantastic. But thanks to you guys that came out. I had a great time this past weekend. It was a good event, and as I say, it was a beautiful weekend, all weekend for baseball. Yesterday, fantastic baseball game yesterday. The Indians get their first walk-off win of the season here at Cody Anderson. What a debut for him, man. 7 2/3. It's been 2008. When I saw that, I started wheeling back in my head trying to remember, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I can't think either. It's 2008, the last time the Indians had a starter in his debut roll out 7 2/3 the way Cody Anderson did. We're going to talk about that. Of course, Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan and Everybody Hates Cleveland, he's going to join us here in the second segment of the show, and we'll talk about that stuff with him. But I kind of want to talk a little bit specifically, Father's Day here. And of course, sports in general, it's a lot of father-son, a lot of the passing down of we talk about it all the time. I tell you guys all the stories of me and my dad and how that's how I became the guy that you're listening to right now. I always equate the stories of my childhood. I did not realize. I mean, obviously, you get at the point where you can start seeing that the numbers are bigger in the losing side than the winning side. But in my childhood, during the 80s, you'd have never known that the Indians stunk as bad as they did. You wouldn't have known it by me and my thoughts, and because the guy that I followed, my dad, I'm telling you, he had the Indians hat. It doesn't matter. He was an Indians fan. He wasn't a fan of the Indians when they were winning. And when they weren't, he was a football fan or a basketball fan. And don't talk to me until next season, like so many of these people that I see. And that's the difference. Everybody's a fan at certain points of time. Everybody's a fan at the right time. And, people throw out that term bandwagon, but in a town like Cleveland, it's easy for that to happen because you've got 3 different teams, 3 different sports. It's so easy if the Indians are having a bad summer. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to segue right there. My man Charles sent us an email over the week. Actually, I saw it over the weekend. He sent it on Thursday to the show about something like that. Like, just because the Cavs' great run is over, it doesn't mean you fast forward and wait until football season. There is still a baseball season going on. Go be all in with the Indians. But that is so easily done. When one team's having a bad season, you can bail quicker because there's another sport coming. There's another team getting into training camp or whatever, and you can move on to the next one. It enables you to do that if you choose, and, you can't do that. That's the definition of bandwagon. Like, of course you're going to wear your Indians hat when the Tribe's, winning 100 games, but anyways, you know where I'm going with that, and I always yes, Chase, we have other sports too, believe it or not. But you know what I'm saying. You wouldn't know by the attendance, although it was nice this weekend. It was a beautiful weekend. You had the 95 Indians there. There was a bump up yesterday, I think, had 21,000 to wrap up that series. I'll be curious to see what the Tigers do during the week, but that's going off into a different subject. Just, going back to it, I never knew, because that's just the way that I was raised, man. And, you're a Cleveland guy. Those are your Cleveland teams, et cetera, and so forth. So, Father's Day always has a little extra sentimentality to me. This is the 5th year since my dad passed here. So, a little bit of sadness there. I mean, it is what it is. We all go through, loss and all those things that come with life. But you always twinge back, and I think, I never really told. Here's a story I never told on the air, you guys. And it's a perfect tie-in, because yesterday, the Sunday edition of the Plain Dealer, they had a great pull-out section kind of commemorating the Cavs' run here this season, putting it all in order, and the whole end of the season thing and all that. And there was, of course, a write-up on LeBron and how, this came full circle from a year ago. And think about it, a year ago, to how this whole thing started till now. And I will go back to what I said before, and I'm sticking with it. The sting gone away. This Cavs run feels even better, I believe, if you look back at it, than it had any right to. I know, if you're being honest and you're looking back at it, it definitely. Somebody said that to me yesterday. I was signing autographs, and I'm all over the place right now. Forgive me, but I was signing autographs, and somebody said, "Hey, what happened to those Cavs?" And I said, "Nothing. Nothing at all happened to the Cavs. What are you talking about? It was a fantastic run, and there's way more to come after that." So, but anyways, that was my exact reaction. He goes, "What happened?" I'm like, "Nothing happened. Don't give me that what happened to the Cavs." But anyways, LeBron is a great tie-in to this whole thing that I'm talking about with Cleveland sports and stuff, because 5 years ago, you think back, it's the summer of 2010, and my dad ended up passing from cancer in August of 2010. So think about the timeline that I'm talking about. About a month, 6 weeks before my dad passed was the decision, which, of course, is one of the last, things. And, of course, jokingly, how Cleveland sports fan of it, that would be one of the last things, the last kind of memory, big thing, that happened, timeline-wise in his life. So that stuck with me a little bit more over the time, because I think back, and I'm telling you, guys like my dad, your dad, all these guys, any of us could tell the same story. I'm not just saying my father, your father, any of us could, just thousands of us could tell these same kind of stories. But a guy that was a Cleveland sports fan for all of his life, that was like just such even more of a slap in the face then. And so, the stung of that stuck with me. And then I sat here and hey, I was one of the bastions of don't say. Don't just come back and throw your hands up in the air and say I'm home. Let's see how this thing goes. Let's play it out and see what happens. And I talked throughout the Cavaliers playoff run, man, how focus go to that Atlanta series. LeBron, when he gave literally of himself to exhaustion. And I mean, at that point, even I broke and said, you can see there's a different level of effort, a different giving. And, I saw some good wrap-ups of the season kind of touching this. Some of the better write-ups I saw in the Plain Dealer and in some of the national media that I saw talking about that part of the LeBron narrative, because when he left in 2010, it wasn't just a crappy way to leave. We know about the TV show and all of that, but I'm talking about the effort in the last series, the way he threw off the jersey, the way he couldn't wait to get out of Cleveland. And then I go back to the way he was after the Cavs lost to the Golden State Warriors, after he gave what he had and threw it out there on the court, as they all did, underhanded and undermanned and all shorthanded, not underhanded, but undermanned, and all the things that they fought through there that we already know to get to where they did, to fall just short of winning. And that was the reaction you wanted to see in 2010. A guy who walked off the floor frustrated, and the type of frustration that doesn't leave you to pack your bags and move on to brighter terrain. It's the one that makes you hit the gym and come back and make the league pay for what you just went through there. And that's the type of it's a totally different thing. I mean, whatever it is, you may not like, and I didn't like, and you didn't like, and he may not have liked parts of the journey that went through the 4 years to go away and circle around. But whatever it is, it led to what we saw in the playoffs. And to circle back around, you should really, it's a more remarkable run now. The sting starting to go away here as, a week ago we're looking one way. Now here, obviously, the last few days you got to deal with it and transition over, and now you look back and realize just how awesome the run that the Cavaliers made was, because the season could really be broken up into three completely different, maybe even more than three compartments, probably four, but you had the early season team put together when LeBron came here, and then they had to shuffle the decks to get the salary cap going, and then they made the big franchise change in trade, which over the course of the summer I know we're going to talk more about with Kevin Love. And so now you've got your initial Cav. Think about that Cavs squad that hit the floor against the New York Knicks. Dion Waiters was still a major part of that, was going to start, and there was still, they were trying to put that grouping of guys together. There was no Mozgov. None of those moves had happened yet, and it was a tough start to the season, and it was tough. And the whole quarter pole of the season with LeBron sniping at David Blatt and at his teammates, and then Kyrie Irving had the game where he doesn't pass the ball to anybody, and LeBron's pouting, and really there were so many things going on. Everything was just all over the place. It was a mess, and the Cavaliers were a mess pretty much through the end of December, and then LeBron goes away, and we all talked about him taking his Buckeye vacation for 2 weeks, and we get his mind right as much as his body right on everything else. But at that same time, that's when David Griffin completely changed the course of the season, made those key several trades, and really those were very big deals. And then one ties into the other because he picked up the extra first-round pick after he gets Smith and Shumpert, and then brings in Mozgov as well. And those three guys enabled David Blatt and Ty Lue and his whole staff to sit down and completely scrap the decks on the way the team played defense. They changed everything at that point in time, and offensively, the team just exploded. They really came together. You saw, what was it, a 33-9 run there to end the season since they made those trades. And the Cavs truly, at that point now, were, in my opinion, heading into the playoffs. At the time they started this playoff run, the Cavaliers were right there in the top, I would say, 3 or 4 teams expected to be one of the final teams down at the end. I mean, you could easily say that a lot of people were talking Cleveland, Chicago, Atlanta for the most part in the East, and Golden State, Clippers, San Antonio were kind of the team. Houston, that was kind of the teams everybody was looking at to come out of each side there. And the Cavaliers were definitely a favorite heading into the playoffs. And then you have what I will continue to say is the most costly 4-game sweep in NBA playoff history, or close to it anyway. I mean, there's been series where guys have gotten hurt for other teams, don't get me wrong, but in the course of a, for all intents and purposes, meaningless 4-game sweep for the Cavaliers, look at how much it changed the game as far as losing Kevin Love and Kelly Olynyk, and the armbar heard around the world, and Kevin Love runs off the court, never to be seen again for the rest of the Cavaliers run. Now, because the Cavaliers had some difficulty assimilating Kevin Love in certain times during the regular season, that was a little dealable. I mean, and we saw Tristan Thompson step up, and he instantly did. So you could deal with that right there. I mean, it sucks. You lose your number 3 option offensively, a great rebounder, a guy who stretches the floor, all the things that Kevin Love brings, but you're able to adapt. Any great team could suffer one significant loss like that and continue to adapt if they're truly a championship team. Golden State could have definitely lost a Klay Thompson, or a Draymond. Draymond Green came up with some big rebounds in some of those series. They may not have gotten past Memphis or Houston without him. But regardless, they could have lost a man along the way, much like Kevin Love, and still made it through. A great team can survive that because you've got to be deep to be a great team and to be an NBA champion. Fine, so on and so forth. The Cavaliers reassimilate themselves instantly. Many people put them in the guise of an underdog taking on the Chicago Bulls, and I was so in disagreement with that, it wasn't even funny. I'm like, come on. But they did have the playoff experience to be there, and the Cavs were coming in. Remember, missing J.R. Smith for the first 2 games of that series as well. It did look like, hey, maybe this is it. And I remind you to go back at the beginning of the season, especially before the trades, unless you were one of those crazy people that say, oh, they're just going to win the championship just because they have LeBron. I'm telling you, almost everybody else had their season ending short of a championship, whether it was against Chicago, Atlanta, or against Golden State. So be honest about it. And they probably exceeded what your actual expectations were. But anyways, they take care of business so decisively, winning 2 road games in Chicago. Tristan Thompson manned up and put him on the map, say, hey, I'm going to get me a max contract this summer. Cavaliers move on to Atlanta, where they continued to be underdogs. Everybody said, oh, now the Cavaliers are going to get shown one great player can't beat a great team. 5 is going to beat 1. And then the Cavaliers went out there and without Kyrie Irving. Because remember, throughout this entire run, that was a sub-story, was Kyrie Irving and his injured leg, both legs. First he injures one, then as he's favoring the one, he wears down the other one, which ended up being where he fractured his kneecap. So all along the way, Kyrie Irving's up and down, up and down, up and down. Cavaliers destroyed the Atlanta Hawks. And I dare you to go back, look at some of the articles, local, national, etc., before that Hawks series. Tell me how many people saw that coming. They might have seen the Cavaliers win, if they were being honest, but very few. I straight up called 4 or 5 games. I just knew that Atlanta was getting ready to get run over by the freight train that the Cavaliers had become at that point in time. They changed their identity several times during the season, and they became the most ferocious defensive team I've seen in Cavaliers history. Definitely the best team we've ever seen in any era of Cavaliers basketball defensively, because they had to, and that was good enough to win. And I maintain that had they not lost Kyrie in Game 1 in overtime, which will go down as a crucial moment in that series goes a different way, and the Cavaliers are sitting here as champions right now. But anyways, it is what it is. They lose Kyrie Irving, and I go right to the counter argument. Apply that to any other team. However, you can't apply it to any other team. You got to play them the way they bounce, and they bounced the way they did. And the Cavaliers finished 2 games shy of an NBA title after winning, I believe, about 65 games combined in the last 3 seasons. I'm just saying, man, it wasn't exactly, the bastion of success here. And the Cavaliers, from where things were 12 months ago to now, it was just an unbelievable run. And I think if you look back at it now, there's no way possible. You can, but you're just one of those people that I don't like, and I don't want to talk to you. There's no way possible that you cannot look at it and see. And I think about, segueing back to where I started with this, I think of these 2015 Cavs, and I think 5 years later, if my dad was still here, that is a team he would be so proud of. That team, that's the kind of team any true Cleveland Cavaliers fan, even if you're still mad at LeBron, and I can get that. Listen, I am not one of these people that wags my finger at every Cavs fan and says, you have to forgive LeBron. You have to like LeBron. There's many people that don't. I still have things that bother me, even though I'm good where we're at now. It took a while to get here. You do what you got to do, and you did it, and you showed me, hey, this is good. I'm with it. I understand the era of the egos and the $1 million athletes and stuff, but give me all you can there on the court. I can't hold a lot more against you there. Anyways, regardless, but I don't wag my finger and say, hey, you have to. I understand. But even those people that still have issues with him had to embrace him and this Cavaliers team for what they did. They gave you guys, and it's hard to use this so much in an era where guys make so much money to play sports. It's hard to say, they left it all on the floor. But they did. They gave you guys everything they got. Whether you want to believe they did it for you, whether you want to believe they did it for themselves, it doesn't matter. How many teams have we had around here that don't do that? All of them. Many of them. Many, many, many times. Many teams, many seasons, many years. These Browns players win 2 or 3 games and go home happy to cash their checks. And I'm just saying, the last 4 years, these Cavs gave it their best effort and couldn't win 20 games most of these seasons and cashed their checks and went home, But these guys, they still cashed their checks and went home, but they gave you everything that they had and gave you a hell of a run. So anyways, on Father's Day, I was thinking back and going, boy, that's the kind of Cleveland team that would make you proud. Plus, this weekend, the Indians honored the 1995 Indians AL championship team, and it got me thinking back about that too. My dad and I went to several games during that 95 season, and because my dad was old enough to go to the parade the last time the Indians had won a championship. He was a kid. I think he was how old was my dad? 14 at the time that the parade, the 54 Indians there, when they went to the World Series and lost, and the 48 series he was 10, I believe, or 8 when they won. But anyway, so my dad could literally remember those. He could remember the Browns when they won in '64, and which is all that can tell you stories about literally watching the greats that it's different than just reading about them in books. I watched Jim Brown play football, etc. And so I didn't, but my dad did. But anyways, that 95 season was so much fun for him because he, unlike me, who, as I said earlier, watched my dad wearing the Indians hat and not realizing how bad they stunk during the 80s, he did. He did realize how bad they stunk. He sat through it every year during the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the early 90s. And so I remember how much fun my dad had during that 95 season. And then when they went to the World Series, I'll tell you what, everything that they made that was branded, like with the World Series logo and the Indians and the Braves logos on them, everything that was branded that they had at the stadium, he brought home and put them away in the memorabilia shelf. He had plates and plastic cups and napkins and, anything that they gave at the stadium that had the logo, that had that navy blue. If you go back and look, I can still picture it to this day. It was gold and navy blue, the 95 World Series logo, and it was diamond shaped, and it had the Indians and the Braves logo on. But anyways, he just had all these tchotchke things he was so stoked. I think he went to 2 of the games that season in the World Series, went to a bunch of the other playoff games, but that was just the peak for him after sitting through all of that misery for all those years. And I look at it so differently than the next generation, my generation, that sat through 15 or 20 years of bad baseball or whatnot, but how much of that were you even paying attention? Maybe, 10 of those or whatever. So it's a little different, and I can only imagine sitting there and the joy of watching it. But it got me thinking, this weekend here, so many of those things tie back, and so many of us, especially you guys, look, if you're the type of guy that likes sports and sports talk so much that you're inclined to sit and do this thing that we do here every day, whether you listen on whatever the sites or whether you download the show or however you get it, you're a pretty hardcore sports fan. So at that point, I'm pretty sure you can really relate to some of these stories. I saw my man Charles on Twitter send a picture 3 generations deep at the Indians game yesterday. How sweet is that? Father, son, and son. And that is so awesome. That is some great stuff right there. Good picture, Charles. Thank you for sending that to us. You guys, hey, I'm just saying, I know if anything here, the cats that I'm talking to can totally appreciate where I'm coming from with that one. And so anyways, to tie it all in a big bubble, the 95 Indians were in town this weekend. Doggone it, the Indians couldn't take advantage of that the first 2 nights, even though they did channel the spirit of those 95. You could never beat those Indians in 95. It doesn't matter if you were up 8 runs in the 9th inning. They'll find a way to walk you off. The Indians finally found a way to walk one off this past weekend. But whether it's that, looking at these 2015 Cavs, just kind of thinking about how things come full circle, man. And I was thinking, boy, my dad would definitely have been proud of these Cavaliers here, and he would be all in, as they say, waiting for next season to get started. But he would also, to segue where I said with Charles, he wouldn't be moving on to training camp. It'll get here soon enough. There's a baseball season going on. I'm very interested to see. And they probably could have done themselves better favors had they taken 2 out of 3 over the weekend. But I'm interested to see how this Tiger series draws, because you would think it would draw well because it's beautiful weather out here and it's the Tigers and it's a marquee series and it's a rivalry. But man, I don't know. I'm not going to lie. If I was an Indians fan, I don't know if I'd be afraid to buy a ticket, only because this season, more than most, man, the Tigers have just been mauling the Indians. It doesn't matter if they come in cold and the Indians come in hot. It doesn't matter. When these 2 teams have played so far, the Tigers have just mauled, no pun intended, the Indians, and we'll see if that continues here. But I've got to think that may play a part in the attendance here as well. Plus, it is weekday, even though it is summer, so we'll see. Like I think they got 21 there yesterday. Bruce in the chat. Well, that's how I know Bruce is here, because I see a little bubble pop up when I start talking about the Tigers and Miguel Cabrera, because I know where he's going. But yesterday it wasn't Cabrera. It was J.D. Martinez. I mean, as if you don't have to worry about Cabrera coming in hot as it is. What did he hit? 3 home runs yesterday for the Tigers, did Martinez. So there you go with that one coming in. We'll talk about that in a minute with Dan Wismar here. Talking about baseball over the weekend. Did you guys see Max Scherzer? He had the one hitter. I don't think anybody's ever done what he just did in his last 2 starts. And if so, it's a very, very select group. But he just had the one hitter where he had 7-inning no-hitter going, and then he gave up 1 hit in his previous start. And then how about over the weekend? I don't know if you guys saw it or not. I was catching up after it was Saturday, and I was catching up after my event, and after some guys had cleared out, sitting there watching SportsCenter. And at first I didn't notice. I thought he just threw a one-hitter, or a no-hitter. And then I realized what happened. Man, Max Scherzer went 9 2/3 of perfect ball, and then with 2 strikes and 2 outs, clips the elbow covering of the batter and nips him, and they give him first base. And then, of course, the next out is recorded, and it's it would have been a perfect game. Instead, it's a no-hitter, and the perfect game is ruined by a ball that nicks the hitter on the elbow with 2 strikes and 2 outs in the 9th inning. Man, that's a tough one to swallow there. But think about that. I mean, a one-hitter, just a nearly unhittable performance, followed that up with what he did there over the weekend. Max Scherzer is really starting to dial it in. That was an amazing set of starts right there. But, man, just tough luck. Unbelievable, the guy. And then, of course, many people speculating, did the batter lean in? And it's hard, it's hard to tell, but he kind of gave himself away when he talked afterwards. He said, hey, man, it's my job to get on base, and that's what I got to do. And so it is what it is. But, boy, if you're Max Scherzer, tough to live with. But you know what? You couldn't even go out and argue it straight up. Manager was asked, he said, no, because what am I going to do? Go out there and mess with his rhythm? He's got to finish this thing, So you couldn't even go out there and argue the point. But that was tough. But, boy, Max Scherzer really dialed it in this past weekend. Hey, let's take a break, you guys. Let's catch our breath here a little bit, and we'll get Dan Wismar in on this conversation. I want to talk about all of this stuff that we've been talking here, Father's Day and Cleveland sports and the Indians over the weekend. Cody Anderson, getting back to that. What a great first performance from him, man. I mean, we've seen that before. Not as good as that one, though. It's been a while. But we've seen that before. Can he keep it up? Because, boy, the Indians really need to shore up that fifth. Well, I'm not saying anything that you don't know. That 5th starter spot. We'll talk about all of that and more. Cavs run. We'll talk about it with Dan Wismar. Mo Williams wants to come back to the land. I'd be all for that, actually. I like Mo. Used to love the Mo flow, man. Deep in the queue. I would not mind him being in that mix. But then again, Dwayne Wade's daddy is walking around wearing Cavaliers shirt, man. So, I don't know. What's up? Is there a hidden message there? We'll talk about all that and more. Let's talk about Cavs, Indians, Father's Day, Buckeyes. Who knows where we're going to go? But we're going to go there with you and Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan and Everybody Hates Cleveland. Coming up next, after the news, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Dan Wismar here on the Sports Fix.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into...
The Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
It's an addiction. The Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
How to be a great dad in 15 seconds. Bike ride, go fish, walk in the park, phone call, milkshake, play catch, picnic, fly a kite, tell jokes, laugh, talk, read a story, tell a story, bumper car, swing set, bowling, pillow fight, cut loose, stay tight. Whew. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com.
Do you want to take your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners, terrestrial or internet, the Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Signs and Ship, the official printing source of the Sports Fix. Locations in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Florida. Find out more at signsandship.com.
News break.
I'm Christine Lisi. Right now, Jordan Spieth is the sixth different player to win golf's first two majors of the year and the first since Tiger Woods since 2002. Spieth won the U.S. Open after Dustin Johnson three-putted from 12 feet on the final hole at Chambers Bay with a chance to win the championship himself. Spieth with a shot to win the Grand Slam. The British Open is July 16th through the 19th at St. Andrews. The PGA Championship August 13th through the 16th at Whistling Straits in Wisconsin. Turns out Spieth's caddy had home course advantage 8 years ago. Michael Greller decided to give caddying a try, attended a meeting for potential caddies at Chambers Bay. His goal, to caddy at this year's U.S. Open. Of course, he did just that and helped Spieth win the title. Baseball, Angels starting pitcher Jared Weaver on the DL with inflammation in his left hip. Cardinals righty Lance Lynn will return from a strained forearm and start against the Marlins on Thursday. Rockies outfielder Carlos Gonzalez day-to-day with a sprained left hand. Defending champion Vanderbilt and Virginia kick off the best-of-3 College World Series final tonight. Coverage begins at 8 o'clock Eastern on ESPN.
Custom Ink is the fun, easy way to design custom t-shirts for any occasion. Get started in the online design lab with hundreds of fonts and amazing artwork. You'll even get free shipping. Visit customink.com to order your custom t-shirts today.
Hey everybody, this is Jerry the King Lawler from WWE, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live. J-Rocc back with you here, rolling on. Going to get joined by my that Catholic school education paying off now. Talking about Father's Day. I bet my dad's glad he spent all that money there. We're going to get back and rolling here. Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan and Everybody Hates Cleveland is going to join us here and pick up the conversation, talking all kinds of things here. A little Father's Day and Cleveland sports and tie-ins and memories and the 95 Indians and the 2015 Cavs and all of that. Cody Anderson. By the way, I don't know that you could say Jordan Spieth won the U.S. Open as much as you could say Dustin Johnson lost it. I mean, to three-putt when you got the chance to win it and then missed the opportunity to tie it. Unbelievable. But, hey, you can't give them back, you know. But anyways, let's talk about all of that and more. Cody Anderson, hell of a debut for that kid. 7 2/3 yesterday. Kept the Indians in it, and they were able to walk it off. Can you believe all the talk of them 95 Indians and the progressive field and all of that? And I said this before, even in the Indians' bad seasons recently, they've still been pretty good at pulling it out at home and the walk-offs, and they've always every year had a few of those. Can you believe we're almost into the 4th of July? We're June 22nd before they hit their first walk-off this year of the season. Let's talk about all of that and more, some Buckeyes talk, and we'll get into all of it. Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan and Everybody Hates Cleveland. You guys can keep the conversation going on Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfix, CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. I'm on the phones with Dan Wismar. Dan, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, Jerry. Happy belated Father's Day to you.
Absolutely. Right back at you. How'd your weekend go, man? Would you get into anything special?
You know, it was great. I've been down in Raleigh at my son's house with my grandkids for about the last 5 or 6 days, and just got back last night. So I was actually on a plane when coming into Cleveland when the U.S. Open was finishing up, and I didn't get a chance to check out the video of that incredible finish by Spieth on 16 and then again on 18 till I got home and sat down. I only missed it by about a half hour, but I missed it live and had to watch some of that video. But what an amazing series of shots that young man made coming down the stretch. And obviously,
true.
Dustin Johnson, 3-putting from 12 feet is a heartbreaker for him, but Spieth won it by making great shots.
He did. You're right, and I wasn't trying to take away from that. It just that's a tough one there. Like you said, to have 3 of them there like that, and it is what it is. And now, hey, what's he 2/4 of the way to a Grand Slam? So who knows?
It really is something else, and he's now such a celebrity. And to his credit, I think he's handled it all very, very well. He's a bright kid. He's an articulate kid, and brimming with confidence. I mean, you certainly don't see any excess. Well, I guess he's humble enough, but just a super confident kid, and he really is great for the sport because as the wheels come off Tiger, the sport needed somebody to rally around and somebody who's media friendly and someone they can hang their hat on sort of for the next decade. And you never know what's going to happen, but this looks like it could be the guy.
Yeah, definitely. There's been some teases of that before, being the guy, and nobody's been able to really grab that mantle just yet, but this could be the best chance to see it. And I got yelled at by some guys the other day because, boo-hoo, poor Tiger, because a lot of people don't feel sorry for him, because the other day I kind of talked for a few minutes about I hate seeing Tiger Woods in where he's at now. I mean, he was so great for so long, and to see him and you don't even realize, because I'm one of those guys that goes, hey, man, he had a bad stretch, and he's going to change his swing, fix himself, get surgery, feel better. He's coming back stronger. He has a good tournament, and then he stumbles again. Then you realize it's been 2008 was the last tournament that he's won, and you realize as more and more time goes by, boy, it's getting tougher to come back. But he just struggled so bad. Shot an 80 the other day, and it was just the grimace on his face as he's playing. I go, damn, man, is Tiger just playing because a whole lot of people pay him money to keep playing golf, or does he refuses to say, I'm not going to get better? And that's a tough one to say. When do you give it up?
Yeah, well, the other thing too is Tiger's 36 years old, and you don't. This is more than a bad streak. This is.
Oh yeah.
I guess we're getting into the category of diminishing skills now, where not too many 36-year-olds are going to come back and compete at the very highest level with the young 21-year-old bucks like Jordan Spieth. And I think what you mean is he hasn't had a major win since 2008.
That's what I meant. Yes.
Yeah. But I frankly, as much as I recognize how great and how dominant he was, I think we spoke about it a little bit ago, where the competition in his generation was so much of a deeper and better field of golfers in the sport than, say, it was when Jack Nicklaus was winning 18 majors, when he had essentially Trevino, Palmer, and Gary Player and a couple other guys to contend with as elite golfers. Now there's 44 instead of 4, elite golfers on the tour. And for Tiger to have dominated like he did when it was essentially him and then everybody else way back in the pack, it just, brings into focus just how dominant and how great a player he was in his prime, dominating in a field that was much better and deeper than the greats of the past had done. And I think over time, as we go forward, we'll come to appreciate how great Tiger Woods was during his prime and how he dominated the sport in a way that was pretty unprecedented before that.
Yeah, I talked about that on Friday. This U.S. Open is almost the perfect one to look back because it was 15 years from one of the most dominant performances, period, that you see somebody lay down when he just destroyed the course back in 2000.
Yeah, that's right. And the memories that I have of him, winning the Masters at 18 under,
yes.
kind of just basically running away from the field, and no one is even on the same plane with him. And really, if you look at that as the metaphor for his prime of his career, that's really what it was. It was Tiger running away from the field and leaving everybody, many strokes back, looking up at him. And
yes.
See, like I said, I think we'll come to appreciate it more as we go forward, and we see how hard it is to dominate. For Jordan Spieth to have done what he did is pretty incredible. And he looks like he's going to be around for a long time. But there are so many great players on the tour now that it's hard to win multiple tournaments in a year, let alone multiple majors. And it's just such a deep tour anymore.
And I'm not saying big, huge, long-term comeback back at the top of the game. But, man, do you see in any way a scenario for Tiger to get back and just – I don't know if you want to say go out on a winning note, but I mean, get back there. Whether it's just win one more, man, forget chasing the record anymore. Just can he get back to that level at all? I mean, it's the injuries, those pile up, and I mean, those do take away. I mean, physically, you can look at Tiger Woods and see the difference. I mean, he was such a physical specimen, and there's a lot of people that can speculate what they want there, at the time because, hey, think about it. Just being fair, that's also in the era that every other sport ties into, performance enhancing and all of that stuff. Very interesting that you could look back into that as well. And then you look at the corresponding physical breakdowns later. But the physical difference between the guy from 10 years ago till now, let alone 15 years ago. I mean, do you think what's left? What does your gut tell you is left for Tiger Woods? Can he pull something back together? I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I think I would too. And although I've never wanted him to catch Jack Nicklaus just because of the Buckeye connection, but
right.
I think all he needs is to get his short game together. I mean, that's the biggest part of it. He can't chip anymore, and putting hasn't been great either. But that can come back. That can come back with coaching and practice and just getting a better feel. And a lot of it depends on the course that you're on too. But so sure, that can come back. And then, like I think what you're saying is, can he come back to being competitive, or maybe never come back to dominance, but can he come back to being in the in the top 5 in some events, or being in the top 10 in some majors, and making a run at another title or two? Sure, I think that can happen. Nicklaus won the Masters at age 46, and Tiger's 36 now, or 37. So sure, that can happen, but he'll never dominate like he did before, I don't think. But gets his short game together, I think he's going to be able to compete.
Interesting. And the dynamic, too. He's one of those guys, I equate it to like a LeBron. It's one of those guys that you're either you're on one side of the fence or the other. And like this conversation right here, you're either going, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing the guy make a comeback, or no, man, Tiger gets what he gets, and I'm glad to see it. Some of those guys are very polarizing, and he is definitely one of those that you don't sit in the middle and just go, Tiger Woods. You either like him or you don't.
Yeah, I think there's some of that. I respect him immensely for how he dominated the sport. The closer he got to Jack Nicklaus, kind of the less I wanted him to win those majors. Just it has nothing to do with anything having to do with Tiger, other than wanting to keep that Buckeye on top for posterity and for history. But if you're in denial of what Tiger was during the peak of his career, then there's something wrong with you because you just don't have your eyes open. He dominated at a time when the tour was better than it had ever been, and he still separated himself from everybody else by a wide margin. Where you can say that he dominated his sport during over a decade, maybe more than anybody else in any other sport has in memory. So it's hard to find comparisons for how he dominated during that short time.
Oh, I'm absolutely with you on that. And, hey, perfect segue. We'll jump right from that. Talk about dominate. I don't know if it'll be more than one start, but for one start, what a dominant first appearance there. It's a good word to describe the rookie yesterday on Father's Day. How about Cody Anderson coming up and really giving the Indians what they needed out of that fifth starter spot? We've seen fifth starters come in and knock them dead the first time out there before, only to be brought back down to earth later. But what an encouraging first performance, especially because the Indians talked about a lot of the tweaking they had done with Anderson physically over the last two seasons to try to get him ready to hit the ground with some success in the majors. And not only was 7 2/3 the longest, it's the longest he's gone since he's been in the minor league system there. Like, that was his longest outing period. He picked a good place to have it there for the Indians yesterday.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that was his longest outing ever, but there sure were some skeptics when they brought him up, when they chose him to come up and be their fifth starter. Sort of a little bit of a surprise, I think, when it was announced. And then as I'm following the game yesterday, and I wasn't able to watch it on TV down in Raleigh, but I'm following it on at bat, and I was a little skeptical about them leaving him in, especially when they gave up some base runners, I think, in the seventh and in the eighth, and put some guys on, and finally Tito came and got him. But I was thinking, wow, first start ever. I was surprised that he went that long, even though he didn't have a real high pitch count. The other thing that surprised me, Jerry, was that he essentially was throwing all fastballs, or a high percentage of fastballs. Wasn't really using a lot of secondary pitches, and I was a little surprised that he was getting guys out. Plus, guys like Al McKella and some other guys on Twitter were commenting during the early going that he seemed like he was a little bit, that adrenaline was a little bit responsible, or at least in part responsible for coming out throwing 95, 96, because that hadn't been really his MO before either, had it. He was not known as a guy that sits in the mid-90s. It was sort of he sits in the low 90s and sort of touches on the mid-90s from time to time. So there's a little bit of surprise, a little bit of raised eyebrows around the tribe watchers on Twitter that he comes out and just pumped up, jacked up, and maybe throwing a little bit faster and harder than he had earlier in his minor league time. So, but yeah, it got to be encouraging. I mean, before I left town, I had gone to the game a week, 10 days ago. I was at the game on Thursday, I think, of the 11th, and saw that shutout, and Markham's 6 inning, 5 innings of no hit ball practically, or into the fifth no hit ball, and 6 innings of shutout baseball, and a week later he's history and the DFA'd, and that's sort of been their MO, this year with some of these guys. Markham was DFA'd before and re-signed, but to just sort of shuffle that. Obviously you're looking for some answers in that fifth starter, and you hope you found it. You like a big guy like that who looks like he's durable and he can throw mid-90s, and he's a power pitcher. I hope we see some more secondary stuff, and hope that the scouting reports won't lead to the kind of up and down inconsistency that plagued Markham while he was here.
See, you just kind of hit on right where I was going to go with that secondary. The issue there to me is great, and the adrenaline, and you got them going, but second time out, teams will have seen a guy. They've got the tape, as they say. Now you lay on that fastball, and guys are going to lay on you, and very quickly that can turn around. So now that's going to be the key. If you didn't need it, that's great, and clearly he was able to handle things with the power. But you're going to need it the second and third time out here if you're going to keep this thing going. And nobody says you got to go out and do what you did here. But if we can just get some consistency out of that fifth spot, that'll go a long way to helping the Indians as they try to kind of even keel feel things here again. June's been kind of up and down here as they haven't really been able to get anything going for them this weekend. You had all the good vibes and big crowds and everybody feeling good, and they still lost 2 out of the 3 to the Rays.
Well, it's kind of remarkable, even, Jerry, that they won one.
Yes, yes.
When you get three-game series, you score 3 runs. You don't score more than 1 run in a game. You don't expect to win any of them. The fact that they came out with a win is sort of a bonus. Of much more concern to me is the fact that after a little bit of a hot streak, your ace, Corey Kluber, is 3-9 on a 4-game losing streak and can't seem to get through that first inning. If I'm not mistaken, and I didn't go back and look at this, but I know he gave up 3 runs in the first the other day, and in his previous start, his trouble was in the first inning, and it seems like it's more of a trend now over the last 3 or 4 starts that he gets a tough time out of the gate, and they say with some of the really good pitchers that you got to get them early or you're not going to get them. Well, Kluber's been struggling early in games, and he did it again the other day, and now he's lost 4 straight, and who'd have thought we'd be coming up to the 1st of July, and our ace would be 3-9, our Cy Young Award winner. That's as big a concern as anything.
You know what? And I'm with you on that. As he sits with a 3.6 ERA, and that's the thing, is that a lot of it, there's 2 different Corey Klubers to look at. There's the one that struggled and lost some games, and the one that can't get any run support either and has lost some tough ones, because it was so funny. That game was Saturday night. Sunday, in the Plain Dealer, there's Hoynesy with his rant of the week about how Corey Kluber could make a case for being into the All-Star game here, even though he sits with his record 3-9 as it is here at this point in the season. There is some truth to that. He hasn't been terrible, but he has been inconsistent. And then when you tie that into the fact that they're not scoring either, I mean, it just really puts your back against the wall. But it's not like he gave up all 4 runs, and all 4 of them were earned in that game. And he had 4 walks, and that also is atypical Corey Kluber. His ball matter of fact, as I pull it up here, 70 strikes, 42 balls. That alone is just atypical of a Corey Kluber start.
Yeah, it really is. And I think teams are approaching him differently. We saw the Royals. Well, the Royals have really beat him up this year, I think three times. And the Tigers, too, have figured out a way to go away with him, to take him the other way. And teams have had success doing that. Certainly that's the Royals' approach to him, and you can see other teams doing that. And you've got that slider that's down and away, and teams are just, trying to put a bat on it and go the other way with it. And teams have been able to take him the other way with power sometimes too. And so he's going to have to adjust there. The league is obviously adjusting to him. And he's pitched in some tough luck. That's what aces, that's what number 1 starters do. You're facing. I
agree.
I think this late in the season, you're not always, rotations have been juggled. And I think probably more is made of the fact that number 1s face number 1s, because after the season gets going, people miss starts and have off days. You're oftentimes not facing the other team's number 1. Run support has a lot to do with the fact that he's 3-9, and a 3.6 ERA is not a terrible ERA. So I'm not ready to put him in the All-Star game just because he seemed like a little bit of a different guy.
I agree.
This year, and so it's but that to me is a bigger concern than who's pitching in the number 5 hole. Although, like you say, very encouraging, career kickoff for Mr. Anderson.
For sure, and you touched on another key thing. Offensively, the inability to produce anything, and we're seeing it again. They got away from it in the month of May, and then now it's coming back to roost again here in the month of June. We're starting to see their inability to do – I mean, okay, your chances are limited because you're not doing well offensively, but then you get the 2 on and no outs, or 2 on and 1 out. You get these opportunity innings, and they just let these teams off the hook, and we've continued to see it. That's a killer, and it's really getting these guys, because the rare chances that they do put together a rally, they fizzle them out just as quick.
Yeah, you're right. Situational hitting this year has been awful. And it is remarkable that yesterday was their first walk-off, and as I watched the highlights yesterday, it seemed pretty obvious that that it was a lucky walk-off, frankly, because that ball, the ball was there in plenty of time to get Perez, and I understand why at least I'm assuming that the reason Tito didn't pinch run for Perez at third base, or even when he was at second base, he didn't have anybody left to catch. Gomes was not playing. Am I right, or was Gomes DHing?
Yeah. No, he was playing. He was playing.
Okay, so Gomes was the DH and Perez was catching. But you can't put your DH behind the plate.
Yes,
if you pinch run for your catcher. I understand that. So I was, my first thought, of course, even when they had Perez on third base with 1 out instead of 2 or 0 outs instead of 1 out, was, you might want to consider pinch running for him because he obviously doesn't run well. But I guess he was sort of up against it, couldn't really do that.
Yeah, so, I mean, it worked out, but you're right. That was the first thing a couple people said was, why in the world don't you pinch hit there? And I'm like, well, because then you got to put Gomes in to catch, and what if this thing goes, what if it goes 18? There goes your day off. You just, I'm just saying, you never know where that thing can go, and you do have to keep that in mind because the way the Indians were getting going offensively, not yesterday, it's not like you didn't have to sit there and wonder, where that thing could have went. So,
yeah, and really, it's been a one-man show here with Jason Kipnis.
Jason Kipnis. I mean, imagine. Go ahead. Sorry, I was just saying. Imagine
really
if
not
he was
not a whole lot else. What I was going to ask you, since I've been out of town for the last week, I haven't seen games on TV, and so I haven't really got much of a chance yet to get a real good look at Lindor. Certainly with Anderson, and then plug in, your brand new rookie left side of the infield with Urshela and Lindor. Both of those guys, I was just going to ask you where you are with that, and after having a chance to get a good look at Lindor over the last week, what are you thinking? What's your initial impressions out of the gate of Francisco Lindor?
Oh, man. I mean, defensively, yeah, there's been a few bobbles. But other than that, I mean, you could see, like, matter of fact, it was just, I was looking at the box scores from over the weekend. And a matter of fact, that's what had me mixed. I was talking to you about yesterday's game, and I had the box score in front of me from Saturday's game. So that's why I'm like, wait a minute, Gomes didn't catch. Why does my box score say that he caught? And I was trying to figure out, because I had them both in front of me, and I was looking at the wrong game. But
okay.
You can, but getting back to Lindor there, I mean, like Saturday night, 5 double plays turned for the Indians to 1 for Tampa, and you can see it. I mean, Lindor, defensively, it's going to be a lot of fun with this team. There, you can already see the beginnings of just the smoothness. I mean, some of the double plays they turn there, with Urshela and with Lindor there, you can see that as these guys get their sea legs under them, it's only going to get better. Same thing offensively there as well. I mean, the thing that you got to keep in mind, and I think it was Terry Pluto I was reading and pointed out, but I mean, it's kind of known that I think 80% of guys that come up the first time go back down. So you've got 2 guys that came up right around the same time on the left side of that infield there. Can they both stay up, or is there going to be what most people, I mean, I think it's safe to expect something, of a drop down, and maybe one of the 2. You're fighting the odds to think that both of those guys will not have to go back down, because if 80% of guys come up and you got 2 cats that came up at the same time, somebody may have to go back down at one point. I think Urshela's hitting about 240 or so in his limited time up. Lindor in his week and a half, he's at about 260 or so. But, I mean, you're seeing flashes defensively. They're not completely in over their head offensively, I mean, they're still getting their legs out from under them, but I mean, it's exciting, especially defensively. Like I said, you just see the smoothness, and you go, man, I haven't seen some guys make plays like that since there was some Omars and some Alomars in the infield here, man,
Yeah, that's right. I have seen enough of the highlights to see a little bit of the glove, and the one play yesterday where he, the third baseman was coming across, and Lindor kind of went to the backhand and made the play on a relatively close play at first. You can just see the instincts that are there. And it also seems like Lindor has been right in the middle of everything offensively too, even though he hasn't been necessarily hitting for a high average. He's getting on base. He's bunting. He's moving runners, and he's got a couple of RBI hits, and seems like he's got a little bit of pop. And when you consider what we were getting offensively out of the left side of the infield, you can't really kick about 2 rookies that are hitting 250, 260 or whatever it is. So it's all relative. But yeah, it's encouraging to me. I don't think they're writing the season off. We talked about that because you obviously did this to help your team, not to sort of just gain some experience for some guys after you've written the season off. But it's encouraging to see, and youth movements are always exciting. But I'm looking forward to, just now that I'm back, to taking in some whole games and going up and seeing him in person, because he's obviously a special talent.
For sure. And Urshela got the day off yesterday. I would not at all be surprised, especially with the 0 for 4 and Lindor down. He's actually down to 220 now after a tough one yesterday. I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe sit tonight or tomorrow, because you got a V-list and he can give both of those guys a break. So I wouldn't be surprised at all, because, it's good to be able, when they've had a rough couple there at the plate, to give them a day off, and they got Urshela out of there, so wouldn't surprise me at all to see Lindor. But, I mean, as you mentioned, offensively, it's been Jason Kipnis or bust for at least the last little while here for these guys. Michael Brantley holding strong, but even he's cooled off. He's down under 300 now for the season, and it's been pretty much Kipnis. This weekend, again, he provided most of the offense.
Yeah, he's just been relentless, and it's hard. Obviously, you can't do it by yourself, and you went through the weekend, and he got a couple of hits, I think, in that game, or one hit in one of them, and his team still scored 1 run per game, and you're fortunate to come out of it that way. But I heard you talking a little bit about Max Scherzer. He was sort of one of the highlights of the weekend in baseball, and
what do you think of that?
A lot of baseball this weekend, even though I wasn't able to see the Tribe live, but. You got to feel bad for him with the perfect game going away, but I understand he got a sympathy card from Andres Galarraga, about that. But it wasn't, too bad to see that. Wasn't quite as bad as losing it on a bad call like Galarraga did, but that's unbelievable. I guess you can say the only guy to ever do better was Johnny Vandermeer with the back-to-back no-hitters.
That's it.
I mean,
that's.
One hitter, no hitter has to be the only thing better than that is back-to-back no hitters, and only one guy in history's ever done that.
That's what I was just about to bring up. I was going to say, other than that, can you think of anything that matches this? Because that is amazing, man. He had the no-hit bid going for almost 8 innings in his previous start. This one here, I mean, what a killer. I mean, I give him credit for being able to maintain the focus and get that last out and at least maintain the no-hitter, because that's tough, because a lot of guys would lose their mind right there, and then boom. And that's why they didn't even argue the call, because you had to finish the thing off. But I just sat there and said, well, that's what $500 million will get you nowadays in a pitcher. I mean, at least he's living up to the price tag so far.
Yeah, that's true, and I was following it because obviously on the situations like that, you hear about perfect games by about the 5th or 6th inning, and then I'm following it the rest of the way on at bat. And on Twitter, they said at first that it looked like the guy leaned into the pitch, but when I saw the video on it, it looked very legit. I mean, hit him on the back elbow or something.
I didn't think he leaned in. I think just
the pitch was running. The pitch was running into him too, and so it's not like it was a straight pitch with no movement and he leaned into it. I mean, pitch was running inside and had lots of movement on it, and I think it was I don't think it was a bad call or anything that he was victimized by. It just unfortunate, but it was it's exciting when that happens, and obviously perfect games don't happen every day, so it's he obviously is about as hot as a pitcher can be right now.
I thought it was just kind of good scouting of knowing that he was probably going to come inside with that high pitch there, because I didn't think he leaned into it as much as I did. I could get the argument that maybe the elbow was in the zone a little bit there, and perhaps, but hey, he knew, he had a gut feeling where that pitch was going to go. He was lined up right, but it's still to maintain the focus and get it. And as you said, man, I mean, other than back-to-back no-hitters, the only thing you're going to do better is a one-hitter and just miss a perfect game by a nip of the elbow. And I'll tell you what, I bet you a lot of people are watching Max Scherzer's next start to see what he does to cap off the trifecta. I sure will be, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think there is, if I'm not mistaken, I haven't checked this out, but I think there have been back-to-back one-hitters. In fact, I think maybe even fairly recently, if I recall, but that's probably something I can Google here while we're talking. But yeah, it's hard to, Johnny Vandermeer's back-to-back no-hitters were, I think, in 1949 or something for the Reds. And at least in the late 40s sometime before you can, go back to performances better than a no-hitter and a one-hitter back-to-back.
Absolutely, man. That was an amazing performance there for Max Scherzer on There's a Father's Day you won't forget, by the way. And hey,
right, and the other guy that got the big news was Gordon Beckham yesterday for his back-to-back game winners on Mother's Day and Father's Day this year. Won the game with a walk-off hit yesterday, and also had won the game with a walk-off hit on Mother's Day. So that was another one of those little weird happenings that baseball serves up every once in a while.
How about that? There, at least your mom and dad can't get jealous, man. Your dad like, hey, well, look,
right.
what you do for your mom? Well, here, I got you too, Dad. So there you go, man. That's pretty funny too. The stories that tell themselves in sports, the way things play out.
Exactly.
And all that, Hey, you know what?
I heard you doing. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say I heard you doing a little bit of Cavs aftermath, and we hadn't really had much of a chance to do that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you specifically about the Mark Stein piece about Blatt and LeBron, and how he felt that LeBron had been maybe less than gracious or less than professional in what he felt was a showing up or a disrespect for Blatt, not only late, but really throughout the season. I mean, are you on board with that? I've read some things about it, and I read his article, and I don't know if you saw that or if you took that article in, yeah. But where are you with that whole disrespect for David Blatt thing on LeBron's part? He's taking a little bit of heat for that.
Well, I was saying a little bit earlier. Part of it is, and I think we all have to do this, is you have to shake the way things used to be when you look at today's athlete. And it's so hard for me to do it. Definitely hard for me to do it because I wonder if it's easy to say, well, if this guy coached him or if that guy coached him, he wouldn't do that. I say, how do you know that for sure? Because part of me says in today's era, 2015, and being on the side of a building and being worth $500 million and all of those things, I wonder, and you can tell me I'm wrong, and you can say, well, look at this humble guy all you want, and I say everybody is made differently, and I'm not forgiving what I'm going to say here because I don't like when it gets to that level. But when you're at that level, part of me wonders if this isn't about as quiet as it gets with a guy at the level of a LeBron James, as far as the noise that's around him. And I do believe some of that stuff is true, but part of me says it's not done in the malicious way that it's spoken about in the past tense as much as a, hey man, I do this too, and I happen to be pretty good at what I do, and here's my thoughts on it. I'm a big don't do this, don't do that. I can point out how Michael Jordan acted with Phil Jackson and all of that. But again, I say everybody's different. Everybody's temperaments are different. I wonder if in today's society, if LeBron isn't about as good of an example you can expect, because trust me, it can be a whole lot worse. And I'm not trying to make excuses. I wish that he shook his head yes and said, yes, sir, coach. Whatever your star does sets the example for every other guy. Now, the one thing that I do agree with is that if you do blatantly ignore the guy too much, it leads to other players thinking they can do the same thing. That causes problems. That being said, outside looking in is so much different than inside looking out. And
yeah, I think you're right. And I would agree that there's nothing that LeBron has done. First of all, LeBron off the court has been exemplary his entire career. And always says and pretty much always does the right thing and has never been a bad example for young people or for other players or whatever. So in that regard, we can appreciate LeBron for being about as good as it gets just in terms of off-court demeanor and professionalism, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't think there's anything malicious about what he had done. I think the question that Stein in that article even asks, sort of asks LeBron in column form is there any coach in the world that is worthy of you? Sort of in a little bit of a sarcastic way. If David Blatt isn't worthy of your respect or regard or attention or whatever. Is there a coach on the planet who is? And I don't know if he asks it in so many words, but that's basically what he's driving at.
And you know what?
If this isn't the guy, who is the guy? Who could be the guy capable of giving you direction on the basketball court?
Right on the tail end of what you just said, if you're being fair, I don't see any difference in the way LeBron was with David Blatt this year as the way he was with Eric Spoelstra the past 4 years. And that's a coach that went to 4 consecutive NBA finals and won 2 of them along the way. So that's where I go back to. Part of me says, yes, there's look things that bother, especially an old school guy. Somebody like you, somebody like me. Somebody says, boy, I wish he didn't do that. I wish he didn't give the impression of that. But at the same time, it's no different. And to me, I just wonder in this era, just like having to get used to guys tweeting stuff and having to get used to all the differences from 10 years ago and from 20 years ago, I think with the outrageousness of today's athletes and just how emboldened they are to do and say whatever they want, I think that it's actually quite constrained what you get out of LeBron James for an athlete at the level he's at comparatively to some of these other knuckleheads that are out here.
Well, yeah, that's true. And relative to what his, it's a cliche, but the basketball IQ is, there aren't too many guys that, like LeBron, are in fact, in a literal sense, coaches on the court. Coaching, giving direction to, and understanding the game at the level that he does, and minimizing, almost by necessity, what a coach is able to do or can do, in the course of a basketball game. So,
I mean,
at least we never saw from Blatt some of the, obsequiousness of. Who was it? Mike Brown that said, "I'm just fortunate that he allows me to coach
to be his coach." That was
Mike
Brown's line.
That effect. That's a little over the top. Blatt, at least, would occasionally stick up for himself as a guy who, hey, I've got a track record. I'm not here by accident. I've won championships.
I got to be honest.
And would, toot his own horn a little bit, where Mike Brown was a little bit more, boy, gosh, I'm just fortunate to be here and this guy letting me coach him.
And I think that's going to pay. What you just said is true, and it's going to pay dividends over the next few years, because I believe that when you're in high power, whether you're a top athlete, top coach, all that stuff, there's always little. It's like when you're in a battle and you're probing for weaknesses and you're just trying to figure out what all the lay of the land is. I believe all season long, LeBron's thrown jabs at David Blatt. I believe he served some stuff over his way, because I believe that, and you can tell me this is fair or not, but as somebody who spent 16 years in my business of pro wrestling or 8 years in broadcasting, if a guy, I don't care if you come from another place and you've done this for how long, I don't know you, and you're showing up here now. Now, that doesn't mean you go out of your way to make life difficult for the guy, but hey, you've got to show why should I invest in you, or is the next guy just going to come in? And I'm not saying that's what he did. What I'm saying is I believe he threw jabs. I believe he wanted to see what this guy's got. Brother, you're coaching a team that I'm on that is going to hopefully go to the finals and win a championship. I don't know you. I don't know what kind of coach you are, so I'm testing you along the way. And I think the way David Blatt reacted compared to that exact line that you just said about Mike Brown, instead of saying, well, everybody knows that, I'm just lucky that he allows me to coach him, David Blatt was defiant all season long. Hey, I'm not a rookie head coach. Hey, this isn't my first time. I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to learn, and then I'm going to do it again the next day. And he stuck with it. And I think, tell me I'm wrong, I think that, yes, part of Mark Stein's article was true, but I think the end result is not true, because I don't believe they have the same relationship now that they did when they started this past season. I believe that now that they've gone through the fire together, I'm not going to say LeBron's going to sit down and go, hey, I've got the greatest coach in the world, but I think he now has more trust in him, understands that this guy's not going to throw me under the bus just as much as that's very important too, because a lot of coaches will do that. They'll throw their guy under the bus, especially once you've done it to them. And he gave David Blatt several opportunities to throw that napalm right back over at LeBron, and he didn't. He fell on him. With a star is being able to deal with some of that ego relationship. And I always go back to Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson because that's a great example that I think a lot of people can relate to as one of the greatest basketball players and a coach. Phil Jackson will tell you, and I've read all of his autobiographies, so I'm pretty experienced in what he said about coached Michael Jordan. How do you tell the greatest player what to do and how to do it? My biggest thing was learning how to challenge Michael Jordan, to challenge himself, to find ways to not be bored 82 games a year, and to figure out how to get him to coexist with guys that aren't as good as him, that don't have the same drive as him, because he wants it so bad. If you remember, Michael Jordan used to chew through his own teammates. He would eat them up in practice. He would destroy them in the media. He'd figure, if I could kill you, if I could break you, then so could the opponent, and I've got no use for you on my team. And Michael Jordan, of all the things Phil Jackson figured out how to do most, it was how to get Michael Jordan to stop looking at the weaknesses of his teammates and figure out how to take their strengths and make them work. It wasn't being the coach that told Michael Jordan what to do. It was figuring out all those other things, and I think that you can apply many of that to coaching LeBron James or an athlete of his caliber.
Yeah, I think you're right. And going back to Blatt and LeBron, I think you were right that relationship evolved over the course of the season, and that Blatt did his best to round off the rough edges, if there were any in the relationship, and minimize them. But like you said, LeBron did take his shots, and he took them in some subtle ways and some not subtle ways. I mean, he would talk about my guys. I've got my guys, and I told my guys, and they're my guys. And he would say that kind of repeatedly. And I always thought that was a little bit of a barb thrown at Blatt. But going back to early part of the season when asked about his coach, and he sort of had a matter-of-fact response. Well, he's my coach, what am I going to do? Kind of a thing. And that was kind of nasty. And you never heard anything more in that sort of a tone as the year went along. He would always talk about the coaches preparing a good game plan for him, and the coaches give us a game plan, and we got to go out and execute it, and a little bit more company line sort of approach to things the rest of the way, as opposed to sort of shrugging your shoulders and saying, well, he's the coach, at the moment, what am I going to do? Which he sounded off very early in the campaign when things weren't going all that well. But yeah, I think you're right to see that thing has evolved, and I think for the most part, the team and LeBron kind of showed that Blatt is a likable guy. The other point to make too, Jerry, is that, and I'm not sure if Stein pointed this out in his article, I think he alluded to it a little bit, was to say, if LeBron can, in terms of speculating that he might want Blatt gone, or that he might want somebody else in place of Blatt, and if that's what he wanted, chances are that's what he was going to get, although I don't see it happening.
It's not.
But the point being made that if you get whatever you want to do and you can walk all over your coach, why would you want to make a change?
That's the part that I laugh about when people say both.
What incentive would there be to get somebody different in there if you pretty much have your way of things now?
So people, I agree with exactly what you just said. People go, so LeBron doesn't like it that he gets his way, so he wants a coach in there that's going to not let him get his way, but LeBron likes to get his way. So how does that make any sense at all, what you just said? So what you're saying is LeBron has the perfect coach, and he's going to trade him in for a guy that's going to make his life miserable every day. It doesn't make any sense of what you're saying. But either way, I honestly believe that there's a bit more respect than there was at the beginning, and I believe that there will be more. I go back, again, to me, Jordan and Phil Jackson, great dynamic. I remember Michael Jordan said the thing that sold the deal with him on Phil Jackson because he had to learn to trust that Phil Jackson did not want something from Michael Jordan like everybody else wants something from Michael Jordan. And it was the first time he retired when he went down after 3 and his dad died and he said, I'm done. I'm going to go play baseball. And he made a meeting with Phil Jackson where he expected Phil Jackson to rant and rave and tell him he can't do it. And Phil Jackson said, no way. You got to do what you got to do, but keep in mind that with great, like the old Spider-Man line, with great power comes great responsibility. With your great talent comes the responsibility of sharing that with people that want to see it. But you go do what you do. And he said that was the day that I knew that Phil Jackson wanted what was best for me and not to use me for what was best for Phil Jackson. And I mean, that's 3 championships into their relationship, and that kind of jockeying is going on in the mind of Michael Jordan. So it's not like next year all these stories will disappear. Yes, David Blatt, I think, earned some respect from LeBron James. Eric Spoelstra still went through 3 more years of the same thing, and little by little, there was less and less and less of that, and I think it'll be the same thing here. And going back to, the other problem is the media having so much exposure and visibility and Twitter and all of that, because imagine this being the Cavs, and imagine the big deal. Jackson did not substitute Michael Jordan in and out of the games. Michael Jordan let Phil Jackson know when he wanted to come out and when he wanted to go back in. I mean, and I'm willing to bet many of the top players in the game, that's kind of the way it goes, because that's the way it goes, because it's a star-driven league, it's a player-driven league. But could you imagine in today's era, if there was no Twitter, there was no internet in those days for that stuff. So could you imagine if the word came out that Michael or LeBron James tells David Blatt when he needs a rest and when he's ready to go back in the game? It would be a big debacle in the media, but that's the way it was every day for them, but nobody even knew it, let alone talked about it.
Yeah, that's right. One other point I just kind of wanted to make in hindsight about the series. You and I talked about it before. We talked about it a little bit on the day that the Cavs lost in Game 6, and that is I get a little bit tired of this Warriors team being held up as some, top 10 team of all time or something or other. No matter where you rank them, I don't think they're in the top 50 teams of all time. I think Warriors team was a good team. They're certainly an athletic team. I think if you look at the great teams of history, from the Jordan Bulls to the Kareem Magic Lakers to the Russell or Bird Celtics or any number of teams, I can think of 30 teams off the top of my head that would kill this Warriors team. Yes. And I don't think that they are in any way historically great as a team. That maybe they have the potential to someday be that. I don't know, but I don't think so. To even speak about them as the great teams of history, I don't think they're even in the conversation.
Dan, I agree with you. I think these guys, they're like the 11 Mavericks. That was a good story and a team that just happened to work out. That's to me, I'm with you. Not even in the top 50 teams all time, let alone the second or third best team of all time.
And I think we both agreed that had Love and Kyrie been healthy, that it would have been a sweep in the finals.
Absolutely. Had one of
this
them.
Team was that team was a shot away from being up 3-0. And,
without,
I can't even. So anyway, I'm already weary of the great talk with in regard to the Golden State Warriors. They're not great. They're never great, and that even diminishes the Cavs' performance a little bit by admitting that they're not great, and they still beat these Cavs, these injury depleted Cavs. But,
by the way,
I just can't put up with any of that nonsense, because I think it is nonsense.
It's absolute nonsense. Keeping it classy, taking all those shots at Cleveland during your championship parade and all of that. Everybody had fun taking shots. Draymond Green took some shots. Andre Iguodala took some shots, and that's all good. I don't know how you got the trophy, and that's great. You won't have a second one. But anyways, here's something else to take into. You say both of them. The hell with that. If Kyrie Irving does not fracture his kneecap in overtime, they still get swept, because that changed Game 1. The Cavs should have been up 3-0 in that series if Kyrie doesn't go down, and Golden State's not coming back and winning 4 straight at the end. I don't care what anybody says. But even forget all that. I'm going to add something new to this, because if you were listening earlier, I don't know, Dan, I was talking about why and reasons you should be proud of this team in hindsight. Here's another one. Does anybody realize, as the word comes out today, I saw it in the Plain Dealer, Shumpert had he been injured as he was in the NBA Finals, remember in Game 2, or it was Game 3 when he went in, the doctors of the Cavs talking after the season said had that not been the NBA Finals, that was a minimum 2 to 3 week injury of not playing, not practicing. He was literally playing games 4, 5, and 6 of that series with his arm numbed up with painkillers and practically playing one arm through the final 3.5 games of that series. So on top of being down Verajao and Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving, you had half of Iman Shumpert going as well.
Yeah, I did read a little bit about that his injury was fairly serious, and everybody kept talking about his groin injury. He obviously was hobbled with that also, but the shoulder injury that he suffered during the series was read this morning like you that was more severe than people were given credit for.
I mean, think about that. We could play this game all day long, but I'll just take the team that beat us. And if you find me, whoever the corresponding players are on Golden State that would equate to Anderson, Varejao, Kevin Love, and Kyrie Irving. So even if you want to leave Curry on the court, you're taking Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and probably who else is coming off the court at that point? Who else would you equate there? One of the big guys.
Who knows
David
whether
Lee.
Might be
David Lee.
Or,
Let's take David Lee off the team. So
right.
Now you're starting Iguodala and one guy off Bogut's probably got to get back in there now, and all of a sudden that magical depth is about 6 players deep on the Golden State Warriors, and it's Steph Curry, Andre Iguodala, and a bunch of guys you never heard of. Where does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar, Dan? Because it kind of sounds like the Cavaliers, man.
Yeah, it does. And anyway, it's I agree with you what you were saying earlier about when someone asks what happened to the Cavaliers, the answer is nothing happened to the Cavaliers.
That's what the guy told me, Dan.
Having starters go down.
Because the fans know me at my wrestling shows. They know I'm a Cleveland sports guy. So that's every Brown seasons are always fun because they all come up to me and want to talk to me about miserable Brown seasons and stuff. Hey, what happened to the Brown? Look, I don't know what happened. I don't play, man. I just watch the stuff. But anyways, that guy was like, hey, what happened to the Cavs? Nothing happened to the Cavs, man. The Cavs happened to the Warriors, man. That's what happened. They happened to the rest of the league. Ask me what happened to the Atlanta Hawks. Don't ask me what happened to the Cavs, man. But anyway.
Yeah, what happened to the Chicago Bulls? Yeah,
exactly, Dan.
Those are the intriguing questions. We all watched the finals play out. It's pretty obvious how that went down. But anyway, you're right. It's definitely cause for reflection. It was a great run, and it was fun to watch, and when you're following your basketball team into the middle of June, things are going well.
Dan Wismar from Everybody Hates Cleveland and the Cleveland Fan talking to me. J-Rocc here. It's the Sports Fix, and you set me up here talking about that. I mentioned that, LeBron goes on his social media, turns everything off for the playoffs. I said when he turned it back on, there was more than a few guys around the league going, hey, Bron, if you need some help, man, I'm free this summer. Let me know. I'm pretty sure he got a few of those offers. Talk about intriguing. How about the pictures coming out over the weekend of Dwayne Wade's, was that his dad or his stepdad? I'm not sure which one it was. But either way, wearing his Cavaliers shooting shirt out there at an appearance over the weekend, got the rumor mill buzzing. Of course, Dwayne Wade was here talking to LeBron during the finals and all of that, and the buzz about Mo Williams too, which I'm in the category of, hey, I don't have a problem with Mo Williams. I liked him, and the Cavaliers need to add a 4th or 5th guard there, depending on with Delly and which way that goes there. They need depth there anyway. But what do you think about come on, Dwayne Wade, what's the deal with that? The guy's not wearing a Cavs shirt for nothing now.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. Now, I understand, that Dwayne Wade would probably have to take a pay cut. And I've heard a bunch of names bounced around, and to be honest, I haven't been, like I said, in town for most of a week, so I haven't really gotten a lot of the scuttlebutt in terms of just rumor mill stuff. But I've heard names like, Dunleavy and Monte Ellis and names like that being bounced around. Both of those things are more attractive to me than Mo Williams might be. But again, I don't know what's serious and what's rumor. What can you fill me in on in terms of what you you see in terms of potential Cavs signings, or maybe even where their interests lie?
Well, the thing is it's not it's got to be money is going to be a part of it, but obviously guys are going to give up money to come here for a true chance to win. I mean, you've got to look at what the Cavs did, and listen. Unless you live in Golden State, Oakland, in that area, you're calling it sour grapes. The rest of the league is talking just like Dan and I are right now about the Cavaliers and how this run went and what they've got to look forward to in the future. Other players are looking at that too and going, geez, these guys practically dragged themselves to a title with half the team on the bench. I'll gladly go there. But, when you mention Ellis, and Ellis would be nice, but what are the Cavs going to have? Most likely they're going to have the veteran minimum, which is whatever it's going to be this year. Whatever you can sign every player for, a couple $100,000 or whatever. I don't know, whatever the veteran minimum is, and they'll have that one mid-level exemption, which I believe is like $4.5 million or something. You can sign a player to like a 1 year or 2 year contract for, I think it's a max of like $4.5 million or something. So that's an exception that any team over the salary cap can use. That way, no matter how bad your salary cap is, you can always add at least one player to your team using that mid-level exception. But that's pretty much what they're going to have to work with. But I think where it gets interesting is in a trade, because you've got, first off, there's the Kevin Love question, which will have to be dealt with here.
Right,
but
and you've got the Haywood.
Haywood could bring you a decent player that's got maybe 1 or 2 years left on it. Because the thing is if you bring it in a trade, you don't have all the same salary cap ramifications, and then you could renegotiate a deal, and it's an existing contract instead of a free agent contract. So I think that a big impact guy may come through whatever they do there. And then if Dwayne Wade wants to come here, maybe he takes the mid-level exception. My problem with Dwayne Wade is what we just saw, and the whole reason that LeBron came back, not the whole reason, but one of the reasons he came back to Cleveland was because of the breaking down of Dwayne Wade in Miami. What good does it do you to have the guy here, unless he's just here to be LeBron's friend, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm saying, what good does it have you if he's not able to help either? I mean, we just had a handful of guys not able to help us when we needed them.
Yeah, that's true. He's not, durable is not the word that you use in the same sentence with Dwayne Wade. That is
Who
a problem.
would you like? I mean, Ellis would be nice. Dunleavy would be nice because he fits the spacing and all of that of what we do there,
just a good all-around player. You need to, whoever you bring in, it's going to have to be a good defensive player. And I think that the Cavs are right to sort of look at the Warriors and say, length and athleticism and outside shooting and defense, those are things that we need more of, on this team, on the wings, at the 2, 3, 4 spots or whatever. So those are the things they're supposedly looking to as they consider what kind of talent they want to add to this team going forward. So, and I think, I don't know what kind of a defensive player Monte Ellis is. We know he's a lights out shooter.
Yeah. That's why I thought he fit well with Dallas, but he defensively. Then again, I think Mo Williams, you get the same type of an argument, is what does he bring on the defensive side? I'll tell you, offensively, he's intriguing as hell. Don't forget, Mo Williams had a 52-point game this year. 2 nights later, I think Kyrie had a 55 or whatever, but he had a 52, and I know he was playing for Minnesota, but still, you don't put up 50 points in the NBA just because you're the only guy on your team taking shots. He's still got that lethal ability. I mean, when he was on the bench, averaging 12 in the first half of the season, but when he got traded to the Hornets, he averaged over 17 points a game when he went back into the starter role. So, I mean, Mo Williams can still play some ball, and he can still play at a pretty high level.
Yeah, that's true. I've got nothing against him. I just I don't know what the relative costs are. And there was a good piece on Waiting for Next Year by Jacob Rosen about all the Cavs dollar issues, contract issues, and a good summary. My head was spinning by the time I got done with it because it's very in-depth and very complicated, obviously, but he did a good job of sort of spelling that all out in terms of where they are. But it's the off season is going to be big fun, and obviously fans are going to be paying close attention to it. And I'm interested now that I'm back in town to sort of dive back in to get into that and sort of play the what if games with player personnel around the NBA. And you're right, Cavs have some elevated visibility, some elevated respect, and some desirability for other teams that other players who want to come here will have a chance to get a ring.
For sure, because I don't see the Cavs taking hits on their own. Like, look, if J.R. Smith wants to go, like, for everyone that goes, Monte Ellis, Mo Williams, a handful of guys are going to throw their hands up and go, hey, we'll gladly take that spot that J.R. Smith just vacated. So I don't really worry about us losing anybody. Obviously, the key is going to be maximizing your limited ability to bring in guys to get some impact, one or two guys in here to add to what you're doing, and whatever happens with the situations to play out. And really, Kevin Love primarily, I'm not worried about LeBron. I cannot believe anybody still speculates on the future of LeBron James. You're just ignorant if you're still going along. This weekend, he literally said, I'm coming back to Cleveland. Anyways, but outside of that, obviously Kevin Love will be a key, what he decides to do, man. And other than that, like I said, J.R. Smith, whatever. The rest the Cavs control. They can match whatever on Shumpert. They can match whatever on Tristan Thompson. They're not losing those guys. I think Delly is going to, if they want him back, they can have him back. Because I think had the series ended after game 2 or 3, Delly may have gotten himself a big price jump in free agency. I think he'll get a decent offer. He'll be a $2 million a year guy after this. But I think if the series had ended after game 2, he would have been maybe a $4 or $5 million a year guy, and now he'll be much more in the Cavaliers' price range of keeping him around. Because I think anything under $2.5, $3.5 million, I think they'd keep him anything under that. So I think he's back in their price range after the last couple games of that series. But other than that, they're not going to lose anybody. You got Mozgov's option, which of course they're going to take. What's he going to make, $4 million or something next year for a guy?
Yeah,
that's
a no-brainer.
That's a steal right there for that, to be able to lock up a guy like that. And then to me, that's going to be key too, is getting him signed up for a couple more seasons, because clearly he's going to be a big part of what you're doing, and they don't grow guys that size on trees.
Yeah, he impressed, I think, the national, fan base and national basketball media in all through the playoffs. Guys were raving about him by the time it was all over, and talking about what a steal he was for 2 first-round picks. And teams don't give up 2 first-round picks that easily, but like you say, those guys don't grow on trees. And he's still relatively young, and looks like he's going to help you for a few years.
Yeah, we saw what he did in the finals, man. There's a lot to go there. So bright stuff coming ahead. I can't wait. I think we're what is it, right after the 4th? I think it's about July 10th or something is when free agency
doesn't the NBA season start next week?
I think so, man. The draft on Tuesday, and tip-off starts a week from Friday pretty much, man. But
man, that's a long season, I tell you.
It is. I love it, though, man, because we're 2 months away there. We're right back into – boy, I really hope that the Indians, seriously, with the Tigers here, I really hope that the Indians start to not just get it together for us that are baseball fans, but in general, to keep this thing going, because you don't want Jacobs Field, Progressive Field, whatever you call it, you don't want it to turn into a black hole for the next 2 months and have the horrible attendance and just be a place where nobody's interested in it. You know what I'm saying, man. You want to avoid the apathy that comes between a bad Indian season and training camp, and they're on that precipice. They've just got to push through it, man.
Yeah, you're right, and it was really something, and we talked a little bit about it after I was at the game, the Tribe game, the day of Game 4 on that Thursday, and it's great to see downtown Cleveland rocking like that, and the center of the sports media universe on East 4th Street there, were really a spectacular thing, and just fun to be down there, walking around and being part of it. But you want to have that same feeling, and it would be great if you could capture a little bit of that and just keep the excitement rolling through the dog days, as we call them in baseball. And this team's going to have to pick it up for that to happen, though.
Yeah, a big hot streak, a good home stand. That one's what's kicking me, man, is that they just can't get it together at home more than anything else. I mean,
yeah, you're right. Not having walk-off wins at home is one thing. Not having wins at home at all is quite another. So after the last couple of years, when they had all the adversity, they were still a good home team and a team that played exciting ball and played a brand of ball where they were never out of it when they were playing at home. And that has been just strangely absent in 2015 so far, and hope they can grab some of that before it's over.
Yep, that's what's kicking me the most. Like you said, even 30 games under 500, but you played 500 or better at home most of the time, and it's just not there. So hopefully they got a run coming for them. Hey, Wednesday, when you and I get back together, man, we can talk about some Tribe and Tigers as well, but let's talk a little Buckeyes too. What is the next significant date for the Buckeyes? When do things get rolling?
Well, it's right around the end of July, that's the beginning of August. They've got about a month off now because they're done with their off-season stuff and the conditioning. There's a couple of camps coming up. They have Urban Meyer has Friday Night Lights late in July when he brings a bunch of kids in, and of course recruiting never stops, and they're on that trail. But right now the players are going home, and they've got programs to follow, and they've got instructions, and they've got workouts, and they can work out, of course, at the Woody, but without any coaching oversight. Direct coaching oversight, that is. They've got plans and programs, but it really gets down to when fall ball starts, and that's right around the 1st of August, because they don't play a game this year until Labor Day, which is September 7th. The Buckeyes are opening on a Monday night, if you didn't know that. They're going to be playing a nationally televised game. Virginia Tech game is Labor Day, 2 days after the season starts for the rest of the programs. So, the last couple of years, they've started the season August 30th, August 31st, or whatever the first game. Well, this year those games are pushed back a week into the first week of September, into Labor Day weekend, when the college football season kicks off this year. So, and I believe they're only allowed to have, I want to say 20 practices, and those 20 practices are taken over about a 30-day period. So we're talking about the first week of August before they're back at it.
All right, well, they've got a little bit to go. We can start talking a little Buckeyes. Trussell's going into not one but two Hall of Fames here coming up this season. So we'll talk some Tribe, we'll talk some Buckeyes as well when we circle back around on Wednesday. What do you got going for Everybody Hates Cleveland this week?
Well, I'm getting ready to start putting together some Buckeye pieces for, just anticipating the season. I've got sort of a standard article of mine every year is breakout Buckeyes, 10 breakout Buckeyes. You kind of predict, take out the seniors, take out the freshmen, and look at guys that aren't really household names yet, but they're about to be by the time the fall football season rolls around. So kind of looking at who those players are for the Buckeyes, and that's going to be going up this week on the everybodyhatescleveland.com. And really, as you get into July and August, the college football magazines are coming out, and Phil Steele's is hitting the newsstands, and all the All-American teams are coming out, all Big Ten teams, and so there's a lot of fodder for looking forward to the season, and then of course Buckeyes are putting together another stellar recruiting class for 2016, and they're ranked number 1 or number 2 right now, depending on your rating service. So a lot of attention being paid to that, and some of the new kids coming in this fall too.
They're going to need it, as we've talked about. They've got the glut of talent, and then the flood, the exodus that's coming right behind it perhaps next year. But we'll talk about that on Wednesday, and we'll see how the Tribe and the Tigers fare here, and we'll do the thing, man.
Okay, Jerry, good to be with you. I'll talk to you in a couple days.
You got it. My man, Dan Wismar, as always, from the Cleveland Fan and from everybodyhatescleveland.com, a great site. Jonathan Knight, the sports writer extraordinaire, writes there as well. Make sure you check him out, everybodyhatescleveland.com. We're going to take a break, final break. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll talk about the weekend, the preview for the Tigers, Gladiators. Tough one for them this weekend. We'll preview the Indians and the Tigers. The Cavs, hey, we were just talking about the free agents. I've got the list here. I'll talk about who's due what here when we come back. We'll set the stage for the next show and more. Don't go anywhere. Final segment of The Fix coming up next.
To the Sports Fix. If you want to be my lover.
Guys, want to take just a second as we head into this break and remind you about the official business printing source of the Sports Fix, our friends at Signs and Ship. Signs and Ship, I'm telling you, Chris and Pam, they've taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here in Elyria, Ohio that I work with, or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business is the lifeblood of the community. So check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Visit fantasyjocks.com, your fantasy sports superstore. Championship belts, rings, trophies, and more. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's fantasy sports superstore, fantasyjocks.com.
In baseball, miracles can happen when a team works together.
2 out, bottom of the ninth, down to their last strike.
The same is true in the fight against cancer. That's why MLB has teamed up with Stand Up to Cancer. Because we believe that when we all stand up together,
41,000 on their feet,
we can make cancer history.
Now everybody's standing.
What a buzz in this building.
This is beyond a dream. Stand up with MLB at standuptocancer.org.
The Sports Fix is now available every day on the world's largest internet radio service, iHeartRadio. Download the free iHeartRadio app, subscribe to the show, and get your fix.
This is the Sports Fix. What is your name?
I'm the dude. So that's what you call me, you know? That or his dudeness or duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
Dude, what do you want?
Well, it's this rug I have. It really tied the room together.
We are not a show to be swept under the rug. We are a show to be heard.
It's the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live, wrapping things up across the Sports Fix Radio Network. Hey, real quick, network programming note. Not in the studio live tomorrow. We will be back live Wednesday noon right here doing the thing. No live Sports Fix tomorrow on Tuesday. Sorry about that, guys, but looking forward to being back in the studio live on Wednesday. J-Rocc here, back with you as we roll on. Final segment of the Sports Fix coming your way. I want to thank Dan Wismar for joining us. A nice, lengthy conversation here on the show. Always a great time. Dan will be back with us. Speaking of coming back on Wednesday, Dan will be back with us here on Wednesday, and we'll talk some Indians and we'll talk some Buckeyes as as well. Indians, of course, getting ready to launch this 3-game set at home with the Detroit Tigers, who have absolutely mauled the Indians this season. Tribe only 2-7 against the Tigers, and those 7 have pretty much all been ugly. Miguel Cabrera coming into this series, batting .647. That's 22 for 34. Yes, let me repeat that. The man has been to bat 34 times this season against the Cleveland Indians, and he has 22 hits. That's insane right there. 15 RBIs against the Indians so far for Cabrera. J.D. Martinez, as I mentioned, hit 3 home runs yesterday. Victor Martinez hit 1 as well. So they're coming in, hitting on all cylinders offensively. They've already beat the Indians up offensively this season. Oh, and the Game 2 starter for the Tigers is David Price. He just doesn't let the Indians score. 14 2/3 scoreless innings for Price so far against the Indians, not just this season, his whole career. He's been a Cleveland Indians killer. The Tribe, as Dan and I were just talking about, a poor 14-21 at home, 7 games under 500. So unusual for the Indians to be under 500 that way, the way they've played at Progressive Field, and only 3 runs scored all weekend long in that series. Good news for the Indians. Their 2 victories against the Tigers this year, Salazar and Carrasco are responsible for them, and both of them will be pitching in this series. Tonight, Trevor Bauer takes the mound for the Indians. Trevor's 6-3, 3.22 on the season ERA. Kyle Ryan takes the mound, lefty, as there's back-to-back lefties for the Tigers going tonight. Ryan is 1-1 on the season, 3.2 ERA in his limited starts. David Price, as we mentioned, the aforementioned Indians killer. Man, that nickname applies to just about everybody on the Tigers. A lot of gimmick infringement going on there. They're all Indians killers. Lefty David Price, 6-2, 2.5 ERA, taking on Danny Salazar, who's also 6-2 with a 3.56 ERA. That's tomorrow night. And wrapping it up on Wednesday, 12-10. Great. Right up against the Sports Fix. We'll give you the play-by-play as we go. We'll keep it short. Dan and I will talk through the first couple innings of the game with you. Verlander, 0-1 after his first start of the season, 6.17 ERA. Carlos Carrasco, 8-6, 4.35 on the hill, 12-10 on Wednesday. And as I mentioned, Salazar and Carrasco going for the Tribe in games 2 and 3, hold the Indians 2 victories over the Tigers here this season. So should be a lot of fun. Hopefully there's some fans down there, and then hopefully the Indians are giving them something to celebrate and dance about. Tigers, Indians, always a rivalry, even though the Indians are doing their best not to let it be one this season. Then the Tribe hits the road. Hey, like Chase said, they got to become road warriors here in the chat room. They've got a 10-game road trip coming up after this one, and it starts in Baltimore on Friday. The last chance for you guys to see the Indians for the next 2 weeks. Get down there and check them out as they take on the Detroit Tigers at home. Starts tonight at 7:10. Cleveland Gladiators football, not a very good result, unfortunately, the other day. Gladiators they gave up 15 points in, I believe it was the final 47 seconds of the game or something of that effect, and they missed going for the trifecta sweep the other day, as it was Cavs night at the Q. They had the wine and gold jerseys going on. Everybody was all in Cleveland and ready to go, and then the Tampa Bay Storm stormed to 14 unanswered points there at the end of the game, and they snipped the Glads 52-48 at the buzzer and snapped the Gladiators' 2-game winning streak. Sad ending to what was a great night. Those wine and gold with wine trim Gladiators uniforms looked pretty slick. It was Cavs night at the Q, but they fell short, much like the Cavs did. Unbelievable, the last 47 seconds, the way that rush went down. Gladiators fall here. We mentioned earlier, Spieth wins the U.S. Open. Johnson with that 3-putt at the end. Tough way to go, but now, hey, 2/4 of the way to a Grand Slam. Can that young man do it? Seriously, there's been a ton of guys, Rory, different guys over the years It's been like, hey, is that going to be the guy? Is Spieth going to be the next guy, the young guy that leads golf into its next thing? We'll see, but he's got himself a good start going, that's for sure, with that U.S. Open victory. All right, guys, again, off tomorrow. Back here on Wednesday, we're talking Indians, we're talking Browns, we're talking Buckeyes. Dan Wismar is in the house and so much more. So enjoy the Tribe and the Tigers tonight, you guys, or whatever you're getting into. Get out there, have some fun. It's a beautiful day. I'm going to hit the gym here myself in a few and do the thing. We'll be back here live Wednesday, same bat time, same bat channel, live at noon, baby, right here across the Sports Fix Radio Network. So until then, we love you, Cleveland and beyond, wherever you're at. Do the thing. Come on back here Wednesday. We'll see you live at noon here on the Sports Fix.
Long nights, cold weather, it ain't nothing pretty. So much hate up in this city, bitty city. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Put your hands up in the air, everybody say